A listomania. Think less but see it grow.
Hello, everybody. It's the Lawn Gnome, and welcome to your September 2019 episode of 10 for 12. If you're new to my channel, let me just say welcome. It's a pleasure to have you. And for all of you who are coming back, as well as those of you who are new, this doesn't seem to be your typical 10 for 12 now, does it? No, it doesn't, because this may be the first and only time that you will witness this on my channel. This is a live episode of 10 for 12. I've got my very good friend, Cammy, over at Cammy's Corner joining me for this recording today. I'm just so excited. I'm just so excited to have you.
I'm thankful for this opportunity because being on your channel lets people know I'm alive, since I haven't been on the platform for a couple of months because of all my technical issues. So thank you. You've given the world reason to know I'm not in a body bag somewhere.
And it's good to know that you are one of the few people that understands why I turned my 10 for 12 into a collaborative effort, because I want people to know about other people in the community, that their channels exist, that they're really good people, and that if you just know who to look for, it's amazing what you can find. And you've actually joined me for a 10 for 12 before, and I'm very glad to have you back, because I was thinking about doing another theme around one of my favorite things, which is Funko Pops. But you and I have had a great many conversations about Funko Pops ever since we both found out that we were both respected collectors.
Yeah, actually, that's one of the things I think that brought our friendship a lot closer, is the fact that we learned how advocates we were for just pop culture in general, and then to kind of segue it into this phenomenon that has become Funko Pops. So,
Yeah.
you know, I can say definitely since we began talking, my collection has grown drastically, but it's given us an opportunity to, you know, talk about so many different facets of pop culture.
Absolutely, it's wonderful. But one of the few topics of conversation that we both have been having recently is actually the topic of our 10 for 12, and that is, we both believe that even though collecting Funko Pops is so much fun, we both know that eventually either we're going to stop collecting or the company is just going to stop making them. And quite frankly, Funko has just exploded and has gone into so many different avenues. They're not just selling Funko Pops anymore. There's a lot of things that they're selling that are still themes around Funko Pops, but they're just grabbing license after license, and they are one of the hottest companies in the business world today. So the topic of our conversation was, when the day came that the two of us were going to stop collecting Funko Pops regularly, there's still going to be certain ones that we feel would like end the era, so to speak. The last big hurrah that we just have to add to our collections before we officially throw ourselves into Funko Pop collecting retirement and move on to the next big trend. Like I sort of am doing at the moment right now that I've gotten back into comic books. Heavily, I might add.
That's good though. I'm glad. I mean, that's really what this is all about, and has been for me since childhood, you know. And I think that you and I have touched on this many times, watching the Funko documentary, is that we're at an age where we are in our professions, we're earning our own money, and now we can buy the things that we have pined after for so long. And so to do this at this epic level just kind of correlates with this whole Funko phenomenon. You know, it allows us to get a little bit of our childhood, a little bit of who we are now, and just kind of mash that up. And, you know, at first, I'll be honest, I wasn't really interested in collecting these things, but the more I started doing it, this little 4-inch piece of plastic is just this colorful little pop of a piece of my history. And that's why I love collecting these things. I love just, you know, gracing my wall with these things and just looking at them, because it takes me back to a time that I can remember wherever that was in my life.
Exactly. And I love the intelligent way that they've designed the ability to collect these. You can keep them in their boxes, you can take them out of their boxes and display them on their own, but I love the fact that they can actually be taken in and out of their boxes multiple times. I absolutely love the fact that the packaging is designed for the sake of, you can take them out, have fun, and then you can just put them away and put them back in their boxes, put them on the shelf. And also, because of the way that the boxes are designed, they're stackable, so they're very easy to store. One of the few things that I knew from the get-go was that when I was collecting them, when I was going to finally start moving from my apartment to my new house with my wife, that was one of the easiest items that I had to pack into boxes, because they were already in their boxes, so they were perfect squares, and they were all perfectly put together in all of the big boxes that we shipped them out of. They were also easy to carry, and they were also the first things that I unpacked because they were just so easy to take out of storage and put back on display. It's crazy.
It's funny that you say that, because when I made my move a couple of years ago, that was the very first thing I packed because of the packability, how lightweight they were, and I just wanted to get them safe and sound to the next destination. But as an avid collector of things over the years, that is one of the things that I value most about Funko, because I grew up in a generation where you tried to keep everything, as they say, MIP, mint in package, or MIB, mint in box, and this allows you to have the best of both worlds, because now as an adult, I find myself opening packages more and enjoying these things. You know, I'm not going to be able to take these with me to the next life, so I might as well enjoy them while I've got them.
Yeah, there's also the term NRFB, which is never removed from box, just in case you didn't know that.
Oh, yes.
So we've got, once again, as 10 for 12s go, we're going to be talking not in anything like a ranking from 10 to 1, but rather 10 specific lines that we as collectors focus on. So we're going to go through them from 10 to 1. We're going to go from the smallest amount that we will most likely add to our respective collections to the largest amount that we will add to our respective collections. And I'm really excited to tackle each and every one of these individual lines, because over the years, especially with some of the smaller ones, Funko has been really putting some TLC into those, what I used to call forgotten lines, and they're expanding greatly. So I don't want to hesitate any further. So let's just start with number 10. Now, I'm actually very curious about this specific line, because we don't really talk about this specific topic at all together, and that's sports. I don't really talk much about it on my channel, but my sports fandom is just as passionate as my movies, books, what have you fandoms. I love sports. My father and my brother and I, and also my brother-in-law, and also so many of my friends, most of my friends who are just as nerdy and geeky as I am, we're still massive sports fans. And I like the fact that Funko capitalizes on sports, because sports is just as big of a pop culture phenomenon than anything else that's classified as popular culture.
Oh, yeah. And I think, you know, being female, a lot of the times, you know, there's an understanding that you might not be into sports, but I'm an avid sports fan. I have been a San Francisco 49ers fan since nearly birth. I love the Los Angeles Kings. I'm a huge fan of just going to sporting events and, you know, just getting that live action. And so I will go to teams that I don't necessarily support just to get that feel of the game. But for me, collecting sports in the world of Funko has not been as grand, for that reason that, you know, I'm focusing on kind of other areas of Funko, so I have to kind of be delicate in how many Funko Pops do I want. But I was very, very happy that I finally got Joe Montana this year.
Oh,
so
there
that
you
for
go.
me was
Oh, I'm so
this
glad
was
to
like
see that.
the holy grail. Yeah, this was super cool. I am on the hunt for Jerry Rice, because Jerry Rice would just make the dream team, but I have not had that happen yet. But any classic Niners that come out is definitely on my radar. And I know this is going to sound funny to a lot of people, because he was only on the team for maybe 5 minutes, but I would really love to see Michael Jordan in a White Sox uniform. That for me would make my childhood.
Well, I think that's funny that you mentioned Michael Jordan, because in regards to me being a sports fan, my wife and I are also avid fans of going to Mets games. We're both big Mets fans. One of my other big collections is actually the bobbleheads that they give out at the games. I have been collecting them since my wife and I had actually started dating, and I've got a very decent amount. I would definitely say that I wasn't really too thrilled with this year's grouping because they were very gimmicky, if you will. Like, they didn't really focus on specific players because this year actually marked the 50th anniversary of the Mets winning the 1969 World Series. So I thought, hey, maybe they would do a series of 1969 Mets like Ed Kranepool, Bud Harrelson, you know, another Tom Seaver, a Jerry Koosman. I would love to have some of those iconic Mets in my collection, but no, they gave us a Seinfeld bobblehead to commemorate the 30th anniversary of Seinfeld. They commemorated the moon landing by making Mr. Met in a spacesuit on the surface of the moon. Not saying that those were bad, because I did actually get them. I like them. But you mentioned Michael Jordan, and when they actually announced that Michael Jordan was going to become a Funko Pop, I said, you know what? Even though I hated him in the 90s because I was a diehard Knicks fan, and believe me, I would love a Patrick Ewing Funko Pop. That would just be sick, because the NBA was actually the first series of sports pops that Funko actually made, and I'm still very upset that I never did get a Carmelo Anthony, even though he's not on the Knicks anymore. But I got a Michael Jordan because he's an icon. Like, when you want to talk about one of the greatest sports figures, you say Michael Jordan. The fact that they've recently made Muhammad Ali and now a Babe Ruth, I love the fact that they're doing that too. But I capitalized on my teams. The first sports Funko Pop I ever bought, and I don't have it with me, but I've talked about it a great deal, is my Mr. Met, because they made a MLB Icon series, and then they discontinued it. And that original, because they just recently made a new series of icons, that original Mr. Met is worth a lot of money. So I've got that one. I got some Jets players. I've actually got another Jets player coming in the mail very soon because he just joined the team, Le'Veon Bell. I've got Joe Namath because that's like a classic. That's a classic Jet. I've also got some Rangers because I'm a big hockey fan as well, and I've got Noah Syndergaard from the New York Mets. But I would love more representation of all the teams that I like to follow.
Oh, and I definitely see Funko heading in that direction. I mean, now we're seeing soccer players, and we're seeing, like you said, the mascots, which I was going to mention after you had given your line of what you have, because there are some mascots that I would be interested in adding to my collection, because it adds just a different kind of element to that sport event or that team that you love so much, because the mascot really does speak volumes. I mean, look how much interaction they have at, say, baseball games or basketball games. So they're essentially, just as important in that sport. And I'm very fortunate, even though I'm not super interested in collecting all of these sport icons, my fiance is a huge sports fanatic, and that is the one Funko Pop that I can finally get him to say yes to. So I definitely see some more sports in our lineup on the wall.
I'm surprised because you said you were a Kings fan. Did you ever get your hands on the Wayne Gretzky?
I did, yes. As a matter of fact, that was a definite part of my radar, and I was very fortunate to get that. It was just a few months ago that I added him to my collection, and that was a definite must for me. Because, an icon like that, I mean, like you were saying about Michael Jordan, for me, Wayne Gretzky is more than just my team. I mean, he really signifies hockey for me. He was my segue into that. So there's just certain people you have to add, and he was one of them.
Yeah, I was wishing that because I remembered that the Fanatics made a 4-pack of Wayne Gretzky in all 4 of the teams that he was in, and one of them was on the Rangers. I wish they would have just had him just alone in a box as a Ranger, because I would have totally picked it up. But I've said to people, if they make Mark Messier holding the Stanley Cup from 1994, that would be one of my favorite pops to get. I would also love to get from the 1980s, the New York Sack Exchange from the Jets, which were like 4 amazing defensemen. I would have loved that. But no, I think that right now, the addition of the college mascots is a big thing for Funko. And also the fact that they finally just announced a Tiger Woods Funko Pop. I think that is showing that sports is just as big, and I'm glad to see them really expanding on that a great deal. And also, even though, you know, it's a debatable thing, the WWE line is massive. That sells.
I actually have a friend that I knew from back home, and she and I actually met through the world of Funko, believe it or not. And she has an entire channel dedicated to WWE, and her Funko Pop collection is enormous. But it's just amazing how Funko touches so many people in different ways.
Right. So let's get into number 9, which is also not one of the, although not saying that it's a small line. As a matter of fact, it's blowing up. But the areas that this specific line is tackling, it just shows me how behind the times I am, and that is video games. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
seeing, yeah. I mean, I see Overwatch, I see Gears of War, I see Fallout. I know that these are huge games, but that's not from my generation. I do have my share of video game characters. I had to get Mega Man and Dr. Wily when they originally made them because that was one of my favorite video games when I was growing up. When they made Hubert, I had to get Hubert. When they made this, even when the 8-bit line came into being, and they made the Dig Dug in 8-bit, I was like, I played that game. I have to have that. The Space Invader, it's legendary. But the one major problem with the video games line is the one thing I would love to see is more Nintendo. And that's probably the holy grail of licenses that Funko has been trying to obtain. The fact that they got Pokemon this past year was miraculous.
Yeah, I think for me, I feel the same as you. You know, I'm an avid gamer. Again, probably a side of me you don't hear about and that I don't talk about. I have just about every vintage game system. But I'm a Nintendo girl at heart. That was my generation. That was, you know, what I grew up loving. And for me, I think in order to expand in that area, it would definitely have to be Nintendo, specifically Nintendo 64. I mean, that was really when I was at the heart of my gaming, and when I really was just, you know, all about video games, and I would literally run to the controller. So I would really love to get, you know, Mario Kart and, you know, just that whole line and everything that it encompasses. I would really love to get the Nintendo emblem, you know, something like that, that really just speaks to me and my generation. But, you know, video games for me kind of died with the first generation of Xbox. You know, I really just,
Yeah.
it's not that I outgrew video games, I just stayed retro, and it was really hard for me to keep up. And I've never been a big PC gamer, so I think for me, Nintendo is where it's at.
Yeah, I mean, my wife and I own a Wii, and even though it's definitely past the first Xbox, the reason why Wii is still good, at least for me, is just because of the fact that it still capitalizes on those characters that I grew up with. I mean, like, I would love to see a Mario Funko Pop. I would love, because you mentioned N64, if they made The Legend of Zelda based on the Ocarina of Time. Like, I would love to get Link, Ganondorf, Princess Zelda. A great pop ride would be Link on Epona. That would just be amazing. But other things that would definitely sell, they should definitely make Samus Aran from Metroid. They could make Star Fox, which would totally sell. I mean, I love the fact that they did, in the animation line, make the Castlevania cartoon Funko Pops. I thought that that would be really nice to see. But also, if they wanted to also sell me on some of the other 8-bits, I didn't like the ones that they made. If they would have made Pac-Man in 8-bit form, I would have totally bought myself a Pac-Man. I mean, I like the Hubert, even though it's not an 8-bit, because you recognize Hubert when he is 8-bit or when he's not an 8-bit. So he's easy to balance out.
Yeah, and I think for me, another one I would really like to see, which it would be so, you know, plain, but I would really like a Tetris block, maybe even something that could be interchangeable. You know, but that's just me. But yeah, I think for me, it's just going to be those classic ones that really stand out, because again, you know, you got to continue to ask yourself, how much is too much and how many things do I really need, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like I wouldn't, even though I love all of those legendary characters, like I wouldn't get myself Donkey Kong or Star Fox. I would definitely want to get myself, if anything, I would get Link, because Link is just the character that I classify as the greatest video game character of all time, just because of that amazing lore that he has. And even though I am definitely an old school person, you have no idea how badly I want to play Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So many people say amazing things about that video game.
Well, I think beyond Nintendo, for me, my other classic video game system was Sega Genesis. That was the
Oh,
other
yeah.
one that I was really glued into. And I know that they definitely came out with Sonic. They hit Sonic, you know, in a lot of different areas. We got Robotnik, we got Sonic in a few different poses, we got Knuckles. But I would really, really love to see a 6-inch Vector Man, because Vector Man was made
Oh,
out of these bubbles.
I
And
love
I just
Mega
think
Man.
he would be so stellar. He was
Yeah.
one of my favorites. It was a game that I played with my dad, and you know, sometimes it just takes those memories that take you back. And there was very few games my dad would sit down and really get into with me or my sister, and Vector Man was definitely one of those. And anytime I hear something similar to the music, I'm just all over that. So I would really love a Vector Man. He
Yeah,
would
I love
be on
Vector
my
Man.
shelf in a
I used to rent that game all the time. I love playing the game. I do actually have the regular Sonic Funko Pop, but I am really surprised they never did give us a new version of Tails or Knuckles. I am really surprised that the Crash Bandicoot line is really selling, but I'm also really surprised that they didn't make, you know, I guess they're still trying to acquire the licenses. I think that Ratchet and Clank would definitely sell. I think that Jax and Daxter would totally sell. Toe Jam and Earl, if you really want to think about old school Sega Genesis. Echo the Dolphin, like those are iconic Genesis characters that I think would totally sell. But I'm definitely with you there on Vector Man. But you know, that's the thing I love so much about Funko, because they will tap into the deepest popular culture corners. You know, even when it comes to some of
Oh,
their most popular lines, they'll make a Funko Pop of a certain character from a specific scene in a specific movie, and the fans just go berserk because of the fact that they made it.
and I really think that's where Funko needs to be now, because I mean, we're seeing a lot of these, you know, different characters or different actors or what have you, whatever your category is. And, you know, we'll use something that we see a lot of these days, Pennywise. And he's in probably now 30 poses, you know, and people are constantly asking, you know, well, how many ways can you see it? But it sometimes takes that one character to speak to a person to be, okay, that's the one that I want, you know? So it's just a matter of finding that balance. And yeah, there can be quite a bit of any one given thing, but if that's your niche, you're going to buy it, you know?
I agree with you. I definitely agree with you on the whole thing with Pennywise. I have the one Hot Topic version of Pennywise from It Chapter 1, just him holding the balloon, the Hot Topic exclusive, because that was the version of him that spoke to me. But I also had to get that movie moment because it was just such a beautiful design. It really was. So, speaking of that, that actually brings us to the next category, and that is movies. Now, I personally feel, especially after this year, I am almost about tapped when it comes to the movies that I want to collect. I mean, when they finally gave us Beverly Hills Cop and Office Space this year, that was big for me because those were two of my favorite movies. I loved Office Space. I had to get Bill Lumbergh because that is the character in that movie that just makes me laugh so much. And Axel Foley, you know, having a little Eddie Murphy on my shelf is just absolutely amazing. Him holding the banana is just absolutely amazing. But I really have to dig deep in regards to thinking about what movies, besides the one holy grail, which I don't think I will ever be able to obtain, which is Indiana Jones. I really don't see that many movie characters. I think that characters that I would like to see them make, I'd like to see more of the View Askewniverse, because right now they're only doing Jay and Silent Bob. I mean, I decided that even though I love the Blunt Man and Chronic that are going to be over at New York Comic Con this year, I actually decided that I'm not going to pick it up, merely because of the fact that I already have Jay and Silent Bob, the original Jay and Silent Bob, which are super rare right now. But I would love to see a Dante and Randall from Clerks. It has to be in black and white as well. And I would love a Brody from Mallrats, because he is one of my favorite characters in Kevin Smith's world. I also am really surprised that they really haven't been capitalizing more on Quentin Tarantino films, because those are some of my favorite movies. And when it comes to Quentin Tarantino films, I like to get one from each movie. So I have Butch Coolidge from Pulp Fiction, which means I have one of two Bruce Willises in my collection, because Bruce Willis is one of my all-time favorite actors. I have the Entertainment Earth exclusive of the bloody-eyed Gogo Yubari from Kill Bill, because I just thought that it was so cool. And because I'm a big fan of the actor Walton Goggins, I got him as Captain Chris Mannix from The Hateful Eight. But I'm absolutely shocked that the Reservoir Dogs line never came into fruition, because I totally was going to get Mr. Yellow. I loved what they were going to do with him. I am really surprised they never made Inglourious Basterds or Django Unchained or even Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I think that people love Quentin Tarantino films, and I think that they would sell. So before I get into some of the other things in regards to the movie lines, what are some that you think that you really would love to see?
Well, based on the last 10 for 12 that I did with you, I actually saw a lot of my movie lines come to pass. They came out with Forrest Gump, which I was really stoked about. There is still some maybe poses or some characters. Like, I would love to see Lieutenant Dan. I would really love to see Lieutenant Dan in a wheelchair, because I think that the Funko Pop line is really missing any type of characters with disabilities. So I think that would be a major hit. But Tombstone just came out, and I wasn't as thrilled with it as I thought I would be. You know, granted, that wasn't in my 10 for 12, but it was kind of like one off to the side that I had talked with my mom about after we filmed it. And, you know, they chose 3 different Val Kilmer poses. Why him? You know, there was a million other characters. There was, I mean, I would have loved a movie moment of the 4 of them coming out of the OK Corral. That would have been really epic, you know. But again, you know, I have to kind of just be careful and ask myself where I'm at with how many movies do I want to display. I think when I think of movies now in terms of my collection, I want to continue on with horror pops, obviously, because I'm very much into the horror genre, so I'll continue to add on as various movies come out. I don't think I have anything that's really stuck in my brain except for Killer Clowns from Outer Space, which I'm finally getting some of that here.
Oh, I still cannot believe they made that. I still cannot believe they did that.
Jim is amazing. He looks fantastic. I could not be more thrilled. He is just going to work so well in my collection. But I'm still on the directors. I really love the director line, and I would really love to get a Wes Craven pop. That would really, for me, be like the creme de la creme. So I'm still holding out for that. But in terms of movies, you know, again, there's a million other things I'd like to see. I know that something Funko really hasn't dove into is John Hughes films. You know, maybe we'll start seeing some Breakfast at Tiffany's or something like that.
Well, we did. Well, we did actually get some John Hughes movies.
We got a little bit. I'm just saying.
We got 16 Candles, and we got The Breakfast Club. We did also get Holly Golightly from Breakfast at Tiffany's. But yeah, I'm really surprised they didn't make Pretty in Pink.
We'll get there. I mean, it's just a matter of time, you know. I think that we're kind of starting to see all of that.
Well, I mean, considering the fact that they announced and they also gave us an exclusive over at San Diego, not San Diego Comic-Con, New York Comic-Con, they are bringing the Warriors into pop form, and that's one of my favorite movies, but I'm not too thrilled with the ones that they're announcing, because the one that I would really like is the leader of the Baseball Furies, the one with the yellow face, the black eye. That's the one that I would love to have. I actually have a Baseball Furies baseball jersey. It's one of my favorite possessions, but I really would love to get that one specific character, because to me, when it comes to the Warriors, that's the most iconic part of the film for me.
Yeah, I
And
forgot about the Warriors that was coming out.
yeah, and I also think that one that I would love to see, I don't know if I would buy it. I know that it would sell if they made a Ron Burgundy from
Oh,
Anchorman.
that would be
Yeah.
hilarious.
And because I am collecting them already, I am always excited to see what they're going to do with the DCEU films line, because I do have my share of those. I do have the Henry Cavill Superman, the Ben Affleck Batman, I do have Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, but the last series that I collected, actually it was before I got the Shazam. I loved the Aquaman line. I got the Ocean Master and the Black Manta, and I thought that they were fantastic. But I'm not really so keen on the fact that I'm pretty sure that there will be a Birds of Prey line, and I'm not really interested in that movie in general, to be honest with you. But I am excited for Wonder Woman 1984, because I would love to add Cheetah to my collection, because she's one of the most iconic villains in regards to DC, and I would love to see a movie. I really want to know how Kristen Wiig is going to look. I'm really curious to see her in cheetah form in that movie when it finally reaches theaters next year.
Yeah, that's gonna be exciting to watch that unfold.
Yeah, so the next one that we're going to be talking about is a line that I am really glad to see has just gone to incredible heights, especially in the last year or two, and that is the Pop Rocks line. As a music appreciator, as big of a film appreciator as I am, music just moves mountains for me. One of my favorite pieces of my collection is the Beatles Yellow Submarine box with the book. It's worth so much money now, and as a big Beatles fan, I am just so happy to have this set. It was one of the first sets that I ever actually got. My wife got it for me as a birthday gift for only $50, and this thing is close to $350/$400. But I have my share of iconic music figures. I love my Freddie Mercury. I love my Kurt Cobain. I love the fact that I have a Weird Al Yankovic pop. The new Kiss pops they just made, giving them a serious makeover, was just incredible. And when they announced that they're going to be making a series of Eddies from Iron Maiden, of course, Iron Maiden being one of my favorite bands, I'm still waiting for the pre-order, because I have to get Eddie in my collection, because he belongs here. He truly does. Right next to my Lady Justice from Metallica.
Well, the Pop Rocks line for me wasn't, again, one of those that I gravitated to until Motley Crue happened. When Motley Crue happened, that was an absolute must for me. So of course I got him, or I got the whole band. I say him because then I immediately thought of Billy Idol. I went to him as soon as he came out as well. But now for me, again, it's just those specific ones that I say speak to my childhood or speak to me at some point in my life. I would absolutely love to get a Billy Joel behind the piano. So, you know,
Ooh,
maybe
that
a
would be
6-inch of
beautiful.
that would be really incredible. I
That would
would
be
love
great.
that. But I would also like, oh, it would be just amazing. And I definitely know Billy Joel's got to be around the corner somewhere, but you've got to have his iconic piano. I mean, that is just so
Yeah,
important with him.
yeah.
And then something for me, especially when Kurt Cobain hit the scene in the world of Funko, I would really like to see Bradley Nowell, the singer, the lead singer of Sublime, because he resonates with me for so many reasons. You know, his life was cut way too short, and Sublime has just always been one of my favorite bands. And so I would really like to see him in a pop form. And then just some bits and pieces of when I was really into music. And this is going to kind of take me into, I guess, what would be considered in our day anyway, the alternative grunge kind of movement,
Yeah.
where you had bands like Stained and Mudvayne and stuff like that coming up, and you really didn't know where to classify them. And then maybe something like, and I know this might be coming because we just saw Marilyn Manson and Rob Zombie drop, which is super
Yeah,
cool
that
for
was
me.
big.
I would Yes, that was super exciting for me. I would also maybe like to see like Korn or Orgy, because those were bands that I loved, you know, during those days. So and again, I know that's not at all, that's like kind of that, I don't know, I don't even know what to call that kind of rock anymore. It was just alternative in the day, but I don't know what it is
Well,
now.
yeah, you're
But
right.
pop punk is really,
Yeah, I mean, I know that there was supposed to be a Green Day pop line somewhere down the line, and it still never happened. But as big of a Green Day fan as I am, I don't think that I would want to get them as pops, to be honest with you. I'm really excited to actually have the MTV Moon Man, because that just encompasses music as a whole, especially reminding us at a time when MTV actually had music videos. But I know that there's also rumors that the Rolling Stones are on the way, and I know so many people that would love a Mick Jagger and Keith Richards. I would love to see the Who become pops, and if they made Pete Townsend doing the windmill pattern on his guitar, I would totally buy Pete Townsend. If they made David Lee Roth doing the gigantic leap with his legs spray eagle from Van Halen, I would totally grab David Lee Roth from Van Halen. Some of the others that I would love to see are Steven Tyler from Aerosmith, because he's just an iconic rock star. I would love to see that. I would love to see more Beatles. Nothing would make me happier than to see a music moment of the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show. Like, see them in black and white, all four of them together. That would be expensive, but for me, it would be totally worth it. And some of the others that I would love to see, especially just because of my personal fandoms, because I have the Lady Justice from Metallica from the And Justice for All album, and now knowing that Eddie is going to be coming from Iron Maiden, on the concept of music mascots, I would love to see Vic Rattlehead from Megadeth, because it would sort of like complete the set for me. And Billy Corgan from Smashing Pumpkins, I would love to see that guy too has become a pop as well. And they would probably look amazing. I would love to see it. This could also be a music moment. I would love Daft Punk. And I would love to see them, like, if they made like a little set of them behind turntables, because they wear those iconic helmets and I love their music. I would love to, these are just a couple of rock stars that I would love to see. But thinking about other iconic people in music, I'm sure that if they ever made like a Aretha Franklin or a Barbara Streisand, I know that they're planning on making more Elvis Presleys. Those would definitely sell. And even though he's not technically part of my music collection, he's actually a movie version, but in my music set where all my Funko Pops from music are, I do have Jareth the Goblin King from Labyrinth, because it's the closest that I'm going to get to David Bowie in my collection. But I'm sure that people would love a Ziggy Stardust.
oh yeah, easily. Another thing, in reference to music, you know, because I think we tend to focus on everything from today's standards, things that we grew up with, but I would kind of like to take it back a notch to before I was born. I would really like to see them emphasize on maybe the foundation of music and take us back to the 40s, 50s, even somewhere in the 60s, and let's get into Motown, and let's see the foundation of where rock and roll started, and
Yeah.
just kind of take us through that history of. And I really wasn't sure if I should put this in music or if I should more gravitate it towards movies, but I am a huge musical fan, so I would really love to see classic Gene Kelly also.
I
I
was
know that
thinking
he's
the
more of a
exact
movie
same
star, but
thing.
to me, yeah, so I would just like to see a lot of my musicals come to life.
I think that if they made a Singing in the Rain version of Gene Kelly, I think people would totally buy that. And the funny thing is, going back to movies, I personally would love to see a Charlie Chaplin.
Oh yeah, we've talked about that before. I think that would be amazing. So even the singing in the rain moment with all three of the iconic figures, you know, that would be beautiful. But there's just so much Funko can do, and I think that they're very aware of that now because we're seeing so much of that come to light this year with how many different poses and different just moments that they're pulling out of all of the pop culture that we're surrounded in.
Yeah, I think the one that I'm just excited to see when it comes out is apparently they're making an Ice Cube, and he's apparently supposed to be in a car that's like bumping up and down. I'm just curious to see what it looks like when it finally comes out on store shelves. But going into the next Funko Pop line, this is animation. Not Disney, because Disney is on its own pedestal by itself. The animation line is quite vast because it encapsulates classic cartoons going all the way back to Looney Tunes and Hanna-Barbera to some of the more recent ones like Steven Universe. And there's also adult animation in this line as well as anime. So it's a triple threat. And for me, there are definitely a great deal of things in this line that I would love to actually hop on board of if they actually made them. I ironically had a specific character on this grouping, but I don't need to have her there anymore because they just announced that Daria is coming to New York Comic Con, and she is definitely a must-have for my collection because I loved Daria when I was growing up as a teenager. One of the best shows on television, and also one of the most successful spin-offs in TV history.
Oh yeah, as soon as she was announced, I immediately went la 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 la.
Yeah,
I was
you and
so
everybody
excited.
else who likes that show. Yeah.
No, but this, you know, like you said, this really opens up a platform for so many different avenues. For me though, again, keeping it small because I just really feel like they've done so much of what I had wanted this year that my need and my wants are kind of really narrowing in. I would really love to see this line get finished. Gem and the Holograms.
There
This
you go.
is like my childhood obsession. So yes, so finish this please because there's so much more. We need Rio, we need Synergy, and I want a big Synergy too. I want her with her whole keyboard, the whole shebang. I want her to be semi-translucent and sparkly pink. But also, you know, I'm an 80s girl, so I would really love to see some classic cartoons. Fat Albert for me has always been on the top of my list, so I would really like a Fat Albert line, and even something like Heathcliff, because Heathcliff was always kind of the adversary, I guess, of Garfield. There was always comparison with him, but they stand alone. So I would just like to see a lot more 80s push in there and just get some of the things that, you know, that we wanted. Inspector Gadget, can I get him already, please?
Yeah, I personally didn't even have him on my list, but Inspector Gadget is a must for me. I loved that show when I was growing up. And in the world of adult animation, I was a big watcher of Adult Swim and stuff like that. And as a big Simpsons fan, I would love to see Jay Sherman from The Critic because that was one of my favorite shows when I was in middle school, going into high school, and watching all of the stuff on Adult Swim. I personally, you know, love him or hate him, I would love to see Aqua Teen Hunger Force. I loved watching that show, and I would love to see, even though I'm actually surprised, actually, that Brian Mariotti, the big Hanna-Barbera fan that he is, I'm really surprised that he never gave us Birdman. But I personally would love a Harvey Birdman attorney at law because I loved that show so much. And in the world of classic cartoons, I don't really see myself getting any more, maybe besides Inspector Gadget, because I got the Jetsons pop line. That was probably the best thing that ever happened because I was also so happy that they expanded it and gave us the rest of the family. And I'm really surprised that they gave us all the Jetsons and Mr. Spacely, and they still have yet to give us Betty and Wilma from the Flintstones. I'm
Yeah,
really
that's right. We
surprised by
talked
that.
about that before. But Yeah,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Jetsons line, honestly, I mean, in terms of color, it's absolutely beautifully done, and I could not be more happy. Just the whole way they were designed, the molds of them, they're just absolutely beautiful. That is the kind of pop that looks exactly like you would expect it to have walked out of the cartoon.
Exactly. And I'm also very impressed that they're also doing a lot of Marty Croft work. Like they've been giving us things like HR Pup and Stuff and Sigmund and the Sea Monsters. They're really trying to find those niche fan bases, especially when it comes to classic cartoons. And I'm also happy that I got myself a Felix the Cat. I'm glad that I got myself a Woody Woodpecker because I can't even find Woody Woodpecker on TV anymore, much trying to hunt down the classic Looney Tunes show. But Woody Woodpecker was one of my favorite shows. And Popeye as well. These are cartoon characters that, unless you capture them in a bottle, younger generations are not even going to know who some of these characters are or where they even came from. Which is why I felt that Funko did such a great job in regards to making sure that all of these characters were being turned into pops so fans could actually grab them, and especially the Hanna-Barbera characters. I love even the ones that are super rare because they're limited pieces. They made Jabberjaw, they made Captain Caveman, they made so many different characters from Scooby-Doo. I just appreciate that they're doing this.
Yeah, I would also maybe like to see Underdog in there too.
Yeah, I would actually be surprised if they actually gave us Underdog because he was very popular as well. And I know that you're not really the biggest anime fan, but I am. And I personally am such a Dragon Ball Z fan. And there are a few characters that I do have in my collection, but I wasn't going to grab a lot of them because some of the earlier ones, the designs were not so great, but now they're really getting better. And I always loved the character Piccolo, but I didn't care for his designs until they announced the one that they're showing at New York Comic Con, which is him levitating and meditating, which is like an iconic pose of Piccolo. So I'm so happy that they're making him. That's the only other pop besides Daria that I want to get from the con. And my favorite villains haven't even been created from that show, and that's the Ginyu Force. If they really wanted my money, if they made a 5-pack of all 5 of these stupid supervillains, I would totally grab them. And I also personally would love to see some Studio Ghibli Funko Pops, like Totoro, or Kiki from Kiki's Delivery Service, or some of the raccoons from Pompoko, or someone from Spirited Away. I think that those would totally, totally sell.
Oh yeah, big fan bases there for all of those.
Yeah. So now we'll get into the top 5, and now we're getting into some of the big lines, like the most popular lines that I still can't believe it. Some of these specific lines are almost up to the point where they're reaching a total of 1,000.
Yeah, television. That's where we're
Television.
going.
Yep, we're going into television. Television is about to get to number 1,000. And my curious cat in me is wondering how they're going to fit those numbers on the box. That's what I'm curious about.
Yeah, I've been kind of wondering that for a while. At some point we're gonna have to. Well, I mean, I know that the numbers have meaning, and I know there's a few content creators out there that have discussed how they number them and the sequencing of numbers and so forth. But I think we are going to get to a point where they're going to run out of numbers with all of the different, um, lines that we're seeing, and with all the demand and the requests that people have, we're definitely going to start seeing some quadruples in there. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I mean, I think in regards to television, I have no shock in my mind that they finally decided to bring back The Simpsons, because when they made the television line, The Simpsons were the first 4 in the television set, but they were horribly designed. And quite frankly, the new ones, minus the K and Kodos from San Diego Comic-Con, which I got, and I also love the Treehouse of Horror ones that they're making, but I don't really think the design of The Simpsons is good in pop form. It's really tough. And the same could be said about the Futurama ones and the Family Guy ones. It's kind of hard to make them into pops, I think. But I'm not
I
surprised
think
that
that
they got made.
Well, I think that happens sometimes when you have animation because you're so accustomed to seeing them one way, and then when you try to fit the mold into what a Funko is, because a Funko has a very distinct mold, and a Simpson has a very distinct mold, and Family Guy has a very distinct mold. So when you try and merge the two worlds, it sometimes doesn't work, and I think that's why in some of those cases I've kind of steered away. But there are some things that I would like to see brought to life from, again, my childhood. I would really love a Steve Urkel. I
Oh
would really love
yeah.
to see him. That for me would just be, they could put him in 1,000 different suspenders and I would buy every single one of them because I just love Steve Urkel that much. And I think now with the resurgence of all of these shows that they're re-imaging, I think it's very close to seeing 90210 pops. I
Yeah,
think
I
those will be
agree.
right around the corner.
I agree.
And then probably with the resurgence of Full House with Fuller House, we'll probably see that. Again, these aren't necessarily things that I would contemplate buying unless they're just absolutely perfect, but this is definitely something I'd like to see made. And there's been a lot of discussion in recent weeks of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and I think that would be really cool.
Oh yeah, I do have Will Smith in my collection. I have him as Deadshot from Suicide Squad. So I do have a little Will Smith in my collection. But in regards to television this year, the characters that I got were Cliff and Norm from Cheers. I recently binge watched the entire show for the first time, and I thought that Cheers was so great. I loved Cheers so much, and Norm and Cliff. I mean, John Ratzenberger is an icon in popular culture right now, thanks to Pixar, of course. But to get the two of them, and I loved that they had like little foamy beer glasses, which I thought was just a nice touch. But if Cheers ended up being a successful line, one of the characters that I would love to see become a pop line, I'd love to see Frasier become a pop line because I love those characters as well. I'm such a big Frasier fan. Probably the line that everyone is waiting for, and it's kind of funny because Funko has teased it a lot in their Twitter feed. I know that everyone is waiting for a Brooklyn Nine-Nine line, and I would love to get Captain Holt because I love him so much. One of my other favorite shows is Entourage from HBO. I would like to see certain Simpsons characters be made, like Hans Moleman. If they made Hans Moleman getting hit by a football, I would probably laugh my ass off. I was really surprised that they didn't make Comic Book Guy for New York Comic Con. I thought that would be really cool if they would have made that. But I also would love to see them finally finish the Firefly line because I have that entire line, and there are still 3 characters that they never made. But it's so funny that you mentioned some stuff from the 80s because one character from television that I would love to see come to Funko, and he has to be flocked, Alf.
Yes, that's mine.
I would love
That's my
Alf.
number one.
My wife and I both
Yes.
agreed that Alf has to become a Funko Pop already.
Yes, that he's circled and he's on my list as the number one for television. Alf just speaks my childhood. I used to have, I guess he would probably be like an 18 or 24-inch stuffed doll that I got rid of when I was a child, and it breaks my heart because of all the stuff that I kept. Why didn't I keep Alf? So yeah, I would really love to get him in Funko form. But yeah, I mean, again, it's gonna take just those very special and unique things. I think the other one thing, and this isn't really for me, it's for my honey, I would like to see a pairing of chips.
You know what? I'm a little bit curious to see where it's going to go. I mean, I loved when they made the I Love Lucy line. I thought that was so wonderful to see. But one of the things that they did recently announce was they were supposed to make the Bewitched line, and they canceled it. because
Oh, okay, that explains why my order got canceled. Because I'm like, hey, what happened? I did have them, and
yeah,
that was early in the year. That was probably like February, March that I put them on pre-order.
yeah, because apparently I don't know why it happened. Apparently the fandom wasn't as big as they thought it would be, which was a shock, to be honest, because it's such an iconic show. But when it comes to iconic shows, I remember when I first started collecting Funko Pops and going into my second year of collecting, they announced that they had the rights to this one show and nothing ever happened. And I'm so angry because there are so many fans of this one specific show. And the fact that they are not Funko Pops is a shame because they would sell so much. And that is Seinfeld. I want a Seinfeld line, and I will buy any character that they create, whether it's the regular four, George, Jerry, Elaine, and Kramer, if they make George's dad, if they make Putty, if they make Mr. Pitt, if they make Mr. Peterman, if they make Mr. Kruger, all of these, if they make the Soup Nazi, I will buy them because Seinfeld, to me at least, is such an amazing show. Also, another show that I feel more people should watch is News Radio. That's also one of the best shows from the 1990s. So smart, so funny. It's the only way that anybody can tolerate Andy Dick, but that's also a show that I would love to see become a pop line because to have a little Phil Hartman would just melt my heart because he, as Bill McNeil, was one of the best parts of that show. And I'm just going to let everybody out there know that if you haven't watched News Radio yet, please watch it. You will love it.
It was one of my favorite shows, absolute favorites. And for me, not necessarily a full line. I think I would be happy just with the main characters of these two shows, but I would really like a Punky Brewster and a Doogie Howser.
I agree. I think that those would actually sell if they actually got made. I don't think that they'd ever actually go as far to make a character like from the Wonder Years or anything like that. I feel that like the Wonder Years is so much more and it shouldn't really be turned into a Funko Pop line. I'm really surprised that they did not expand on Boy Meets World, especially that they only gave us Corey and Topanga because you can't make a Boy Meets World line without Mr. Feeny.
I agree, but I think that we're not going to see any more from that line because, to be honest, Corey and Topanga weren't that spectacular. I mean, they were very plain, and I love Boy Meets World. I grew up watching it from inception to its demise, and I was not at all impressed with those Funko Pops. So I think for me, again, you gotta be careful, and you gotta kind of teeter on that because there's so many fantastic shows from every era, every generation, but you really have to ask yourself, are they going to resonate into a good Funko Pop? And I think that's a decision that Funko's kind of making is, what's going to sell.
But now let's talk about a line that definitely knows how to resonate in Funko Pop form, and that, of course, is the Disney line. And Disney, it's so hard to not want to get at least 20 Disney Funko Pops into your collection because we all grew up. Yeah, I see. We all grew up on Disney. And right now, I think the one thing that's frustrating me the most about them is they're not tapping into certain areas of Disney and they just keep retreading other fan favorites. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's nice to know that they're celebrating the 30th anniversary of The Little Mermaid. I'm happy that I actually have Scuttle in my collection because he's one of my favorite characters. But they just recently announced that they're going to be making more Mulan Pops based on the new movie and based on the original animated movie. And I'm just saying to myself, why are we retreading these? There's so many areas of Disney that they can totally tap into. I mean, the fact that they made a Tailspin line and they didn't even make Don Carnage, that made me very unhappy.
I'm hoping we'll see him because I do have the entire tailspin line, but that's actually not why I was pointing back there. That was exactly my point, is that you can easily get wrapped up into Disney. My entire top shelf is Disney movie moments, and just that absolute, vomit of I have to have this entire collection. For me, that was again things that I grew up watching relentlessly. DuckTales and Darkwing Duck and Tailspin is definitely up there, and things that I just had to have every single one. But I completely agree with you, and that was definitely on my talking point here, is Disney to me is failing epically. Funko is failing Disney epically, I guess I should say, because they are trying so desperately to do the live action and the animation, when really Disney's only doing these live actions just to bring kind of a resurgence to the classic films of Disney. So I don't think it's necessary for Funko to give us these live action Funkos. They're really not what Disney is. Disney is at the core animation, and I would really love for Funko just to focus on the animation portion. I realize that there's two sides to every coin, and there's definitely a following now for these live actions, with the new generation being susceptible to watching these probably first before the classics. But I, as a Disney fan, and again, this is kind of where you go with those collections, that you've got to speak to one generation first before the new generation, and you owe it to us as the classic fans to give us that first. And yeah, there's, for me, Disney is always a go-to. I will always look at the Disney line. It's something I'll always try and hunt and peck and kind of complete my collection. But another thing, which I'm kind of glad that the New York line gave us maybe a glimpse of what hopefully will be to come with Mickey and the Matterhorn, that is something that I've been hoping Funko would capitalize on, is getting more park moments, because for many of us Disney buffs, that's something that we love to take home, is those park moments. And something that they have failed to do even yet is bring Walt into this. Walt is the whole reason that we have Disney. Where are these classic Walt and Mickey moments? And I would just really love to see those really iconic ones, of him drawing Mickey at his drawing table, or holding Mickey's hand walking down Main Street, USA. There's so many iconic Walt poses that they could put into this, and that would just make my Disney heart gush.
Yeah, I mean, I was very happy that they did actually make a lot of Funko Pops to celebrate the 90th anniversary of Mickey Mouse, and I was also very glad to get that movie moment of Sorcerer Mickey on the rocks with the water behind him. That's probably one of my favorite Pops in my collection right now. Probably one of the best Pops that they've made in Disney came from San Diego Comic-Con this year, and that was the Carl and Ellie 2-pack from Up. It was absolutely beautiful. It's right over there. It's one of my prides and joys of my collection, because that's one of the best movies that Disney and Pixar has ever given us. But probably the one thing that surprised me the most from San Diego Comic-Con was when they made the 2-pack of Taran and the Horned King from the Black Cauldron. And that's what I was saying to a lot of people. The 80s Disney movies, while it was a very dark time for Disney, there's so much fandom there. And that's where I feel they really should try and capitalize, and also take a little bit of time to take a look at the lost years of Disney from 2000 to 2010 before they went back to Prince and the Frog and Tangled, because I'm actually kind of happy that Disney didn't break me this year at New York Comic-Con. Even though I think that Kevin and the Up House is beautiful, I don't want it at all. But I really would love to see a Todd and Copper 2-pack from The Fox and the Hound, because they are two of my favorite characters. I would love to see the Great Mouse Detective get Pops already, because I want a Professor Ratigan. He is one of my favorite Disney villains. And I also was excited when they made the Quasimodo, because does that mean they're actually going to give us some regular Hunchback of Notre Dame Funko Pops? Because I personally would love to get a Judge Claude Frollo. I would. And I also think that two movies that Disney faithful would love to see them turn into Pops are Atlantis the Lost Empire and Treasure Planet.
I don't know about Treasure Planet. I mean, Treasure Planet to me was kind of, it just came at a really awkward time. I do own it, I do like it, but I don't know that I necessarily want the pops. But Atlantis, I am all over that. But yeah, I think with Disney, again, with even the classic, I think that they're missing out on a lot of opportunities to just give us films. They just keep regurgitating the same ones. I mean, how many poses of Ariel do we really need? You know, give us something that we haven't yet seen, you know, get really deep. I was really excited when they did like you know, Monsters Inc. and Cars, because they really gave us every character that you really would have wanted. And you know, like you're saying, give us the Great Mouse Detective, give us Todd and Copper would be absolutely amazing. So these are all ones that you and I definitely agree on. I'm missing the classic element from the Funko line, and I just think that they could do better. And I have a lot of hope though, because these movie moments are absolutely incredible, and as long as they keep those up, my Disney heart will be singing.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I did see the rumors of the fact that Pop in the Box is going to have an exclusive of Pinocchio with his nose growing and Jiminy Cricket's going to be on the nose. But I saw it up close and I kind of didn't like it. And I was kind of a little upset because I would love to have a Pinocchio Funko Pop. But I will say, if Fievel from An American Tail comes out before some of these Funko Pops that we have mentioned, it will be sad to see Disney fail and lose to Don Bluth again like they did in the 1980s.
Yeah, there's so much that they could capitalize on. I just think they need to focus on it and not, you know, try and just rush things and get them out, because there's some classic movies. For me, one I think that is definitely sits on the top of my list is Robin Hood. Robin Hood has always been one of my favorite classic Disney movies, and again, so many characters. I know that we did have Sir Hiss. He's very hard to find though.
Yeah,
Extremely hard to find. But
him and Prince John and Robin Hood are very, very hard to find right now. I know that Stacy from Stacy's
yes.
Stories has Prince John.
Oh, I know where she lives. No, I'm just kidding. No, but for me, I would love on that line, I would love a Maid Marian, because you know, for me, growing up as a child, there was very few female characters that really stood out as being powerful and influential in my day, and she had such a voice and she did so much in that movie. So to get a, you know, little pop figure of her would be fantastic.
Yeah,
And then also just to kind of you know, capitalize on those things that are a little bit unique. I know that we got some Goofy movie, but I would really like for Disney, and I'm kind of starting to see this because I know that they are starting to release little movie moments from classic animated shorts, and I would really like Disney to continue to capitalize on that, because there are some great shorts with Donald and Goofy and you know, Minnie, Daisy, that really can be brought out. And then also even just taking it back to, you know, the fundamentals of Disney when Steamboat Willie was a thing. There are so many classic films that Disney can also touch on beyond Steamboat Willie, that have so many musical elements to them that would make beautiful pops as well. So
yeah.
again, classic versus this live action would really do justice for the Disney.
Yes, and I think that they're also doing that. I really would like to see them give their classic characters a makeover. I mean, Goofy and Donald were made earlier in the years of Pops, and they were horrible looking Pops. So I definitely think that they are due for a makeover. If they really want to go truly old school, if they made a Clarabelle cow or a Horace horse collar, that would definitely be a nice little tribute to classic Disney. And I personally think that if they made a 3-pack of the Three Caballeros, that would be a really cool thing to see as well. Yeah, I mean, there's so. I mean, like,
Yeah,
I play Tsum Tsum on my phone, and even Tsum Tsum is tackling the true classic elements of Walt Disney, and that's kind of funny when Funko doesn't do it, but everybody else and their cousin twice removed manages to find a way to do it.
and it's funny that you say that. Sometimes I think we're on the same wavelength, because that was what I was going to wrap up my Disney with. Is I would really love to see an Oswald the Rabbit. I think he would be fantastic, because again, that goes to the basic fundamentals of what Disney really was. And I think for me, that would just bring all of that Disney magic back to what I think the Funko line is missing.
Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but they did make an Oswald, and he's super rare right now.
Well, it probably happened in that dark period before Cammy started collecting. So, okay, there you go.
But yeah, Oswald has been made, so maybe he does deserve a little bit of a retread as well. But that would be a decent one. So now we're into the top three. And I'm actually kind of surprised that I put this specific line ahead of Disney, but then it's just because of the fact that this is a specific franchise that, especially right now, is in so much controversy, and to a certain degree, Disney is to blame. And it's Star Wars. Star Wars has a huge line, and the big announcement, which basically got true Star Wars faithful so excited, was the Amazon exclusive of Han Solo in the Millennium Falcon. I mean, that was a big announcement, and that pop is massive. It's massive.
It's cute.
And as much of a Star Wars fan as I am, I really don't have that many Star Wars Funko Pops. I mean, at the beginning, I collected the droids because my wife and I, when we went to see The Force Awakens, we loved BB-8. So we got BB-8 and R2-D2, and as a Star Wars Rebels fan, I got Chopper just to get all three. But then I saw myself actually getting my hands on some of the villains. Like, I got various stormtroopers. Probably one of my favorite Funko Pops is Commander Cody from the prequels. I got Grand Moff Tarkin. I got Grand Admiral Thrawn. And this year I just got the exclusive from the conventions of Darth Maul because I just loved the way he looked. But if you're going to get me to buy Star Wars Pops, I'm just going to let you know this right now. I am not interested in anything that they're going to be giving us from The Rise of Skywalker. I'm just saying that right now. Give me some great Star Wars movie moments in lightsaber battles, particularly from the prequels. Say what you will about the prequels, but the lightsaber duels in those movies are phenomenal. I was always, and even to this day, I'm still on the fence for the Smuggler's Bounty Box one of Obi-Wan versus Anakin on Mustafar. I like the way it looks, but I'm not sure if I want it or not. But I want Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon versus Darth Maul. I want Yoda versus Count Dooku. I would love Obi-Wan versus General Grievous. So many iconic moments from the prequels in terms of lightsabers that would just make excellent looking pop moments.
For me, Star Wars was one of those that I said, don't do it because it's never going to end, much like Disney. And it's funny because I sit myself here, my Star Wars collection is here, my Disney collection is here. I love Star Wars. Star Wars is a huge part of my childhood, but for me, I could stop here and be done. When I got this pop in the mail, I was so freaking excited because this to me wraps up everything that Star Wars was for me in my childhood. I lived to see his face and hear his little voice and just be put on the ride. Of course, this is DG-R3X from the Star Wars ride at Disneyland. Now, there is an exclusive Star Wars for Disney World, which I was lucky to have my hands on when I went there for BookNet Fest. But I didn't pick it up because it doesn't do anything for me. I didn't grow up going to Disney World. I grew up going to Disneyland. So honestly, this could be the last Star Wars pop I buy and I'll be fine with it. But I do know that there are some incredible movie moments. And for me, for the Star Wars line, I did start to buy a few things that were a little bit out of my element around Christmas of last year, just because they went on super sale and I just found myself kind of nabbing them up. But I stopped myself and said, okay, hold on, this could get out of control real fast. So I really just want to focus on those movie moments because for me, in the Star Wars line, those movie moments speak volumes. So I think really the only one that I still need is the indoor one. There's like an Ewok and C-3PO. I would really like to get my hands on that one. I got a few in like different Star Wars like vehicles, different,
Yeah, the
like the
deluxe
TIE
one.
fighters and stuff like that. But beyond that, I again, if Star Wars was my only collection, if that was the only thing that I collected, then absolutely I would keep going. But I just need to be very selective in my choices. So for me, when it comes to Star Wars, if I choose to collect anything else beyond what I have, and I think other than the encounter on Endor, I have all of the other movie moments. It's gonna take something epic to just bring me back into Star Wars, because the DG pop, the DJ
The
pop
DG
rather, was
Deluxe,
it
yeah.
for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was also very fortunate to actually get myself a Disney theme park exclusive. I think that that's like one of my rarer Funko Pops. When I went to Disney World back in 2018, my wife and I were at Epcot and I got my hands on a Figment Pop. And that was one of my prides and joys of my collection. I love Figment. I was so glad that there were some in the stores there. So I was just so glad to get those. And yeah, actually, when it comes to Star Wars Pops, outside of the Darth Maul convention exclusive that I picked up, I actually got my last two Star Wars Funko Pops for free because they were part of a deal at GameStop. And so I was like, what? Because it was like, if I'm going to get a free Funko Pop, it's going to be something that I don't want to spend my money on. So that was around the time that the Star Wars Clone Wars show became a pop line. And I loved the way that the Star Wars Clone Wars version of Yoda looked. So that was my only way that I would get my hands on a Yoda. So I got Yoda and I love it. And I also got Ahsoka Tano for free because she is one of the best characters that Star Wars has created. I love Ahsoka, and the Funko Pop of her is absolutely fantastic. And the fact that I didn't spend any money on them, I was like, I didn't feel guilty about it. And I don't regret the fact that I got them for free. But, I look at my Star Wars collection, it's very minimal. And I don't really see myself yearning to go out and get anything new, except if they give me something that truly blows my mind in terms of a movie moment.
Yeah, it's gonna take something epic, and with the rise of Skywalker, I am excited to see how it ends. I still have 1,000,001 questions that haven't been answered in the last two films, in reference to relationships and who the hell are Rey's parents. Apparently this is going to be answered, but as far as Funko Pops coming off that line, I really don't see me gravitating towards I've got to have it right now. So it's going to
Right.
take a lot for me to stay within that realm.
And now we're getting into number two. And number two is pretty versatile. It's comics. But comics, according to Funko, actually goes in two-prong. There is comics, as in comic books, meaning comic book characters that are not owned by DC or Marvel. And then there are comic strips. Because one of the Funko Pops that came out this year, and it was music to my soul, it was one of my favorite comic strip characters of all time, and that is Garfield. And I got the Funko Shop exclusive of the I Hate Mondays Garfield. I absolutely loved Garfield. Yeah, Garfield is without a doubt one of my personal favorites, and it's just great to have him in pop form because he's so iconic. And I was very impressed when they made the comics line because the first series that came out was Hellboy, and Hellboy is very popular, and those Funko Pops looked great too. But there's definitely some characters that I would love to see because I know that for some strange reason they were part of the animation line. They made the Peanuts a long time ago, and they do make a Snoopy Pop here and there. But I really think they need to really give the Peanuts a serious makeover and put them in this line because who doesn't want Snoopy sleeping on his doghouse?
With a little woodchuck on the end, that'd be great.
Yeah, the Woodstock. Yeah, exactly. And
The woodstock.
yeah, and I know it's going to be such a challenge for them to get these licenses because when it comes to comic strips, the properties are like these creators, they will die with their material. But I would love to see Dilbert Funko Pops. I think that those would look absolutely adorable. I'll tell you one thing. If they ever managed, and this would be a miracle. This would be just as big as them getting Nintendo. If they could get Bill Watterson to give them the rights to Calvin and Hobbes, I would love a Calvin and Hobbes Funko Pops. I would love those. I know so many people that would love Kathy. I know so many people that would love Blondie or Doonesbury or the Boondocks or Mutts or the Far Side or the Family Circus or Dennis the Menace. They could do so many great things if they just get the rights to these properties.
Oh yeah, comics for me are a big thing. Garfield was an absolute must because, believe it or not, comics is how I learned to read. So comics have a very special place in my heart, and I adore the whole Garfield series. I would really like to see the expansion on that. I would love to get a John. I would absolutely adore a Nermal. That would be fantastic. So to see that kind of expand would be great. But yeah, you mentioned some great ones that were definitely on my list. Again, I'm not looking for the whole line. I think just, you know, the quintessential basic frontman characters. So I would love a Hagar the Horrible. I would love a Beetle Bailey. You mentioned Blondie. Blondie is definitely one of my absolute favorites. The Family Circus would be another great one. I mean, I could go on and on with
Blues, Zits.
Yeah, these are all definitely ones on my list. But for me, I think that if those were made, it would have to again translate well, because you know, we've talked about, like, with certain animations, some things just don't work, and so you would have to get the mold just perfectly for me to say, okay, yes, that is like it's stepping out of the pages of the newspaper at me. But I think everything's been mentioned that I would like to see.
Yeah, and in regards to comic books, this is also a very hard license to grab, merely because of the fact that the creator of this specific comic character owns a toy company himself. But I would love to see Todd McFarlane's Spawn as a Funko Pop, because there is just so much that they could do with that character and other characters from this comic book lore, like Violator, Sam and Twitch, Malbolgia, Clown, Chapel, Jason Wynn, so many awesome characters, because I love the comic books. I love the short-lived HBO animated series. Spawn is just a spectacle and a sight to behold in the world of artistry. And I would just to see if they could ever make a Funko Pop of him just like in the shadows with like his red cape just like flowing. That would just be a cool thing to see. And also because of the fact that I'm talking about Image Comics, you know, they already made some Saga Pops and they sold. They actually did very well. But I would like to see the Max, because the Max was a cool comic book character as well. And also, I don't know if you ever saw the short-lived MTV show. I actually own it on DVD. It is weird as hell. But that's also a really cool comic book character that I would like to see become Funko Pops. And there's so many others, especially in the world of Image and Valiant comics, like Gen 13 and the Savage Dragon, Turok the Dinosaur Hunter. Like, the fandoms are there. That's one of the few things that I know for a solid fact, like Witchblade and the Darkness. These are characters that people love. Psyblade, She, these are all icons from the 90s into the 2000s. And again, I think it's really all just about the rights. It's gonna be very hard, but one of the few things that I do want to say, and I really hope I'm right about this, when Funko buys the rights to a franchise, it's not like they're trying to take that franchise away from the original holder. They just want the license for the sake of making a different version of your characters. I mean, I still remember watching the documentary, and I wanted to talk to you about this when we were talking about horror pops. I mean, when Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, got her Funko Pop, she died. She just thought it was the most amazing thing ever. And I love the new Hot Topic exclusive of her on the couch. I love it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I had my hands on it the other day at Hot Topic. I actually went in for the new Haunted Mansion line, and I saw her sitting on the shelf, and she's exquisite. So I haven't added her to my collection yet, but she's definitely worth it. In terms of comics, though, I mean, you and I have had many comic discussions. You know, I'm not a huge comic buff. I definitely immersed myself in the world as a youngster, because I hung out with mostly guys, and guys love comics, and they would share their love of X-Men with me and so forth. But I did dabble with graphic novels for a little while, and one that has always stuck out with me, and I've mentioned it to you before, is Death Jr. It just, there's something about it that is just both comical and beautiful, and the whole concept of the names of the characters. The main character, of course, is the son of the Grim Reaper, and his dad is quite funny. And just to go through that whole line, you have Stigmartha, and you have, just all of these different characters that you've heard puns from different elements of horror. And so I think it would both feed my need in the horror line, but it would also make a really beautiful collection. The closest I've gotten to that was Starve, which is a video game. It's part of the games line, and it looks very similar as far as the graphics. But yeah, Death Jr. would make me really, really happy if they could come out with that, because
Yeah.
I mean, to me, I can't give enough praises.
Yeah, and another comic book character that I know is a big cult favorite that I think would be really cool as a Funko Pop is Bone. I know there's so many people out there that read Bone, and I think that he would make an excellent Funko Pop. Also, I have to say something, because we didn't talk about him in regards to retro cartoon characters. They didn't even make Casper yet.
Oh, yeah. I don't know why I didn't think of Casper. That's true. And he would make, I mean, as far as like nostalgia, when they came out with the Casper movie, we could totally get a Christina Ricci form of her as a ghost. So that would be really cute.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, Casper would be fantastic.
Yeah, and that leads us to the number one. And I definitely am glad that I put this one up as number one, because especially getting back into the mainstream of comic books. I mean, the Heroes, which is DC, and the Marvel line, I mean, they are massive lines right now. And of course, because of the fact that it's the 80th anniversary of Batman, Funko basically went, dare I say it, batshit crazy in regards to capitalizing on the Funko Pop line for Batman. But I definitely think that there is so much more than just Batman for DC. And I did actually see the newest wave of Avengers Endgame pops on the Marvel end. And I have to say it, the one that I really liked was the Captain America with the broken shield and the hammer of Thor. I mean, it looks beautiful. I'd love to see that one up close, because if it looks as good as it does in its glam shot, I would seriously consider adding that one to my collection, because Captain America has become one of my favorite superheroes right now, thanks to the movies, but also finding out about what I've been missing in the world of comic books revolving around Captain America. I mean, I will just say something really funny here, because I watched a video on YouTube that gave me the synopsis of the source material of Captain America Civil War, the Civil War story in comic books. I said this to my wife, wow, that comic book makes Captain America Civil War so tame, it's like a Disney movie. And then I said, wait a minute, Captain America Civil War is a Disney movie. So yeah, it's just like, I definitely feel that in the world of DC, they've got to go back and just go past Batman right now. I mean, I know they're going to make Wonder Woman 1984 pops very soon. I'm sure they're going to make Birds of Prey pops, but I would love to see them give me new incarnations of some other heroes, because right now, one of the biggest collections in comic books that I'm reading right now is I'm reading the Jeff Johns Green Lantern, which is Sinestro Corps War and Blackest Night. I would love to see some more Green Lantern. I'd love to see all 4 of the Green Lanterns, even though they've already made some of them. Like, I know they made a Jon Stewart, I know they made a Kyle Rayner, and they made a Hal Jordan, but I'm surprised they never made a Guy Gardner. I think that he's like a very popular Green Lantern. I'd love to see a new Sinestro. I'd love to see a Larfleeze, an Atrocitus. I'd love to see a Saint Walker, some of the Guardians, because there's so much lore in the world of Green Lantern. I'd love to see some more Flash. Like, I'd love to see them even tap into the golden age of comic books. Like, I'd love to see them do the Max Fleischer Superman, which is an iconic version of Superman as well. Because when you take a look at the 80th anniversary of Batman and how many things they've been making, Superman had his 80th anniversary last year, and he really got the shaft.
Well, I've seen the flip side of collecting on the Marvel DC spectrum. The gentleman that bought me my very first Funko Pop Batman, he actually only collected Marvel and DC. And in his room, he had a very impressive attic room that he converted into his collection room. He had Marvel on one side and DC on the other. So this could get very expensive and very dangerous to expand on those universes. I know that it's very important to see all of these characters because, yes, you're absolutely right. There is definitely more to the DC universe than Batman. I happen to have gone batshit crazy for the 80th, so I think I got just about every Batman out there, but Batman, hands down, has always been my favorite superhero. Yeah, can it, people? I know he doesn't have superpowers, he just has a lot of money, but he can buy the cool shit, so stick it.
Yeah.
But I love Batman, and so I really wanted to capitalize on the 80th year to make sure that I completed what I felt were very important Batman moments for me, and I got my Batman Forever, which I was super happy about. I would like to see a few more classic Batman characters in better, you know, poses, because I mean, we got one of Mr. Freeze, but he wasn't that special. So, you know, just to kind of find, you know, maybe like a Commissioner Gordon in his element, you know, maybe I know that we're going to get the one with the bat signal and so forth.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm really looking forward to getting that.
Yeah, I mean, I was really
That
surprised.
one's like going to finish my collection.
Yeah, I mean, I was really surprised when they were talking about all the new Batman ones that were coming out for the 80th anniversary. I'm surprised it took them so long to actually give us a Funko that tributed to the Christopher Nolan trilogy. It's a beautiful Funko Pop. I mean, I got myself the 1964 comic moment of Batman and Robin on the rooftop because to me, that is Batman. I loved it. And so you got your Val Kilmer Batman complete with bat nipples. That's exciting to hear as well. But I personally, in regards to Batman, I really want to see more of these 66 characters. I love that line so much, and I personally would love to see Bookworm, Louis the Lilac. I'd love to see Egghead, like some more of those great 60s Batman villains. But I also, and this is where I will get really crazy, I would love to see more of the Bruce Timm DC animated universe. I'm really, really surprised that they haven't gone past wave 2 of Batman the Animated Series. And it was kind of upsetting to me because even though there were great ones like Catwoman, Scarecrow, they still haven't made Penguin, they haven't made Mad Hatter, they haven't made the Riddler, they haven't made Two-Face, they haven't made Commissioner Gordon. There's so many more characters from Batman the Animated Series that they need to give us. And not only that, there was also the Walmart exclusive of the Martian Manhunter from Justice League Unlimited. I'm surprised that that's the only one they ever made because I want Superman and the Flash and Wonder Woman all in that animation style because to me, those are some of the greatest incarnations of the DC superheroes.
Hands down, yes, that's my favorite Batman era, and that is absolutely my favorite Batman animation. The Batman animated series was by far, it was dark. We didn't get enough of it. It got cut short way too fast. It gave us some of the best characters, the best versions of those characters, and I would really love to see Funko expand on that because I absolutely agree. I think they've cut us short on it. You know, we got a couple waves of it, and we still haven't seen all of the classic characters. Another one for me that really sucked me in was The Dark Knight. I really loved I just really love that dark element to Batman. I mean, he really just brings you down in the trenches and, you know, his depression and woe is me. So I would really just love to see some more kind of just, I guess, classic characters, but in a really pivotal moments, you know, like where Funko kind of impresses us and they pull them out of that you know, specific episode and so forth. So I would
Right.
just really like to see, you know, more of quintessential Scarecrow moments or Pennyworth, or, you know, just different moments like that. But
Yeah.
I think that there is a lot of availability still for that.
Yeah, and with Marvel, I mean, it's nice to see them taking advantage of the 80th anniversary of Marvel Comics. They've really been giving us some great ones. I think the one that really grabbed me was the fact that they gave us the 1963 X-Men. I love the fact that they gave us the original 5 X-Men. I have them on pre-order. I cannot wait to get them. And also the big announcement was the fact that they are planning on giving us some Fantastic Four pops, which I'm really excited to see, because even though we did get the original 1938 Human Torch very recently, we never got Johnny Storm. And I think everybody's been waiting for Johnny Storm and a better version of the Thing, and we've never even gotten Mr. Fantastic or the Invisible Woman. They're going to recreate Silver Surfer and Doctor Doom and Galactus. These are characters that people have been waiting to see Funko give us again in better ways. But for me, I think that they are really holding back, and we still need more X-Men, and we need the classic 80s and 90s X-Men. I'm definitely not the only one in this boat here, but I want Nightcrawler. I want Rogue. I want Gambit. I want Pyro. I want the Blob, Mr. Sinister, Jubilee, Apocalypse, and the list goes on and on. I mean, I don't even have that many X-Men pops. Until I get this original 63 set, all I got was the specialty series of Iceman, because Iceman is my favorite X-Man. I also got Logan, the Hot Topic exclusive with the bone claws and the wife beater t-shirt. And I also have the Walgreens exclusive of Juggernaut, because it's the Juggernaut. You know, I love the Juggernaut.
Yeah, I agree with you completely on that. The X-Men is definitely my Marvel forte. I would really love to have Storm. Storm is my absolute favorite character. I would just love to see her in all her epicness, you know, with complete like openness on the cape, maybe some lightning bolts coming out of her fingertips or something like that.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I've never really been a true Marvel girl. DC has always been my niche. So I'm really still loving the Stan Lee line, and I would like to have them continue on with that. I think there is a opportunity with his passing to kind of keep him relevant in all of the movies that Marvel will be releasing. And I think there should be a unique way where we still get our Stan Lee moment, not only in Funko Pop version, but in the film itself. There's ways that they can bring him into it and still keep the magic of that Stan Lee cameo alive. And I'm not going to stop buying the Funkos. I absolutely adore Stan Lee, and I would just love to see him continue on with the legacy that he worked so hard to build.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably one of the highlights from New York Comic Con was the Tony Stark with the Infinity Gauntlet on. That was a big one that people really were excited for. And it's also really sad that the collector boxes are going to be stopping their run in all shapes and forms at this point in time. The only one that I believe that is not coming to a close, two of them I believe. I know that Smuggler's Bounty Box and Marvel Collector Corps, I believe, are ending soon. But as far as I know, the DC box and the Disney Treasure box are still alive and well. But I also feel that, you know, while Funko Pops will definitely come to an end for the both of us, and just in general, I'm also pretty certain that the whole concept of collector boxes is going to die off at some point in time as well. And we'll just move on to the new big and better. I mean, obviously, when it comes to Funko, I think Dorbs is officially done. I don't see any more Dorbs coming out anytime soon. It's a shame that Rock Candy was not so successful, because rock candies, even though I didn't really buy any except for one that I have, because I did get the Target Bombshell box, which was great because it had that awesome Bombshell version of Batman, but it also had the Black Canary rock candy, which was my favorite version of Black Canary. I love her as a siren. But yeah, I feel that if they don't really capitalize on the things that we mentioned, I just don't see myself collecting Funko Pops anymore. I mean, it took me 6 years, almost 7 years worth of collecting for them to finally create Speed Racer in the Mach 5. You have no idea how excited I am to finally have that Funko Pop in my collection. That was the ultimate thing that epitomized the concept, good things come to those who wait.
Well, and I think that kind of just wraps up, everything that we're talking about here.
Exactly.
Is the point of this conversation, which is the end of an era. I think that in any category that we've discussed today, it's going to take something really spectacular for me to continue on collecting in that specific category. And I think also, as a collector, anything that I have collected over the years, there comes a point when I look at it and say, okay, kind of like the, condo kind of mentality, does it spark joy? Well, for me, it sparks joy if you can appreciate it on the shelves, if you've got somewhere to display it and enjoy it and see it all the time. With these Funkos, I'm finding more and more, I'm just shelving them away in places that I'm not even looking at them. So I have to be very conscious about making the decision, do I need this? Do I want this? Is it going to really complete the collection? And so for me, it's just now filling the gaps where I think that the collection might be lacking, or something that is created that is just so phenomenal that I can't say no to it. But also, as a collector, and having been a collector of various things over the years, I can easily go back 20, 25 years of collections. It's also consumerism, and I think that we need to be very cognizant of this. This is something that we talk about here within the community often, is just that need, or that feeling, that need to buy so we can show things off, so we can be the first one to say, I got this box first, or I got this limited edition this first, or whatever. And I've never been that kind of collector, and I think that I kind of got caught up in this Funko phenomenon. So I think that as a collector of these Funkos, I love them. Yes, I do. And they do spark joy, and they do bring a lot of color and pop to my world. But there came a point this year where I just said, ew, I need to stop. Like, this is ridiculous. I had back orders for days. I had, pre-orders, I guess I should say, for days. And did I need them all? No, I just got wrapped up in the excitement of, oh, cool, this is coming out and this is coming out. And so now that I've got my head screwed on straight, there's just very few things that I'm going to continue with. One thing that I do know, though, that's not going to stop is this American line.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is going to be the death of me. I will get every president, and I will probably get every moment that they make, because this is something that I will proudly display on my bookshelves. But, beyond that, I think that my collection is slowly coming to a close.
As is mine, yeah. And speaking of those specific icons, it's definitely been announced that Wave 2 is coming, and I know who is in the lineup. Yeah, it's both Jackie and John F. Kennedy. There's also Jimmy Carter. I'm really surprised that Jimmy Carter is one of them. Not surprised about Ronald Reagan, but I know the one that is going to sell the most is the Notorious RBG. When she officially becomes a Funko Pop, people are going to run for her. And it's kind of sad, because I think that Crossing the Delaware is a beautiful Funko Pop, and I held it in my hands. But I realized that it really wasn't for me. I was sort of buying it because I thought that my wife, who was a history teacher, was the one that was truly going to appreciate it. But after she got her Rosie the Riveter, she was done. She didn't want anything else. Now, if they decided to actually make a Funko Pop version of Mount Rushmore, that I would highly suggest would be a recommendation for myself, because I would love to see that. And also, the other line that I think is one that if they give me something really good, I would probably get my hand on it. It's the icons, especially the ad icons. I like what they've been doing very recently, because when they announced the Coca-Cola polar bear, I told my wife about it, and she was like, we have to get the Coca-Cola polar bear. Now there are rumors that they're making Mr. Owl from the Tootsie Pop commercial. So if they have Mr. Owl with a Tootsie Pop in his hand, my wife and I are going to add him to our collection too, because we quote that commercial all the time. But I think what Funko's most brilliant creation right now is what they've done with the Monsters of Wetmore Forest. The fact that they now officially are sharing that line with Barnes & Noble. They've made a series of children's books. Thomas and Lori, I was talking with Thomas the other day. They are collecting the Wetmore Forest books and the Wetmore Forest plushies.
Yes, she always is highlighting those on her Instagram, and her children absolutely adore them. So yeah, that's no surprise that Funko is coming out with that. With the ad icons though, that's one of those things that, because I jumped in the Funko game a little bit too late, I am such a meticulous collector that I would have to go back and feel those itches to, get icons from yesteryear, and it's just never gonna happen. I mean, at the price point that some of them are, and just trying to hunt some of them down, I'm just not even gonna try. That's why, like, the Kool-Aid Man, I absolutely loved him, but I just said no. That for me was my breaking point. As I said, no, I'm not going to bring or introduce any ad icons into my collection, because if I get one, I'm going to want more, and I just can't. But this Americans line, I do see this going places, and I do see a lot of potential for bringing very historical moments into this line. And with our history constantly being ridiculed and trying to be erased, it's very important for me to grab this line and, display it with pride. And I just think that there is so much more just beyond the presidents that this line can offer for us. So I'm very excited to see that line open up, and that's something I'll definitely support.
Absolutely, but don't be surprised if I send you a message if they ever actually make an ad icon Funko Pop of the Alka-Seltzer boy. And that's just because of this little moment that you and I had when we first became friends. But that's going to basically wrap everything up, everyone. That is the 10 lines of Funko Pops with pops that would end the era for us as collectors. But Cami, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to actually do this very special 10 for 12. It was an excellent discussion, and it's always a pleasure talking to you. And just remember, everybody, this is not going to be the last time that you see Cami on my channel. She and I have so many projects in the works, and let's just put it this way. She and I are going to be closing out 2019 on a very, very high note in regards to all of the projects that we're working on right now. She will be joining me for a Sunday sit down. I am hoping to be on her channel very soon. We just have so many great ideas in the works.
Yes, and thank you again for having me. I feel very honored to be showcased on your channel in every facet that you have. I mean, I've been very lucky to fit into all the niches that, of your regular segment. So it's been an honor doing this. And I couldn't honestly talk about Funkos with anybody else. Not only do you get me, and you understand my crazy fanaticism for this line, but just the pop culture that it's able to bring into our life. And it really does also bring memories of our childhood that help us to become better friends. And
yeah,
I think this little toy is honestly a great segue into making friends, because people have so much tie into these things for different reasons. And so the fact that we have that connection, it doesn't surprise me at all.
Hey, look, I just turned 38, but I look like I'm 20 and I act like I'm 10, and that's why I'm going to be alive forever. But anyway, everybody, thank you very much for watching, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all for another episode of 10 for 12. But in the meantime, I will see you in the next one. Hey, thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. If you're new here and want to see more of what my channel has to offer, please click on the link to my last video or hit that subscribe button to be kept up to date with all of my uploads. Content of all sorts is posted here quite often, so trust me, you do not want to fall behind. I will see you in the comments, and actions speak louder than words.